Hey guys, welcome to episode 4, the last episode, fingers crossed. Before we get to start playing with the actual game itself, um, we're going to be working on the main menu today. And we're not going to make anything fancy right now, but the important part is that we've got some tools that we need to be comfortable using to kind of make this process a whole lot easier for us. You can see that things are a little bit different than when I left them just because these imports are here. Those imports should be automatically imported for you because I went ahead and kind of played around with this for a little bit, and some of the imports weren't done automatically for me. So you might actually have to type them in manually, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. I don't remember if I actually had this set up before where I put this .game equals game, but you know, go ahead and put that. And then under the hide, I went ahead and set up the Dispose method, so it automatically called that when unneeded, when it was no longer in use. Whoa, excuse me. Whew. Sitting here with a beer, and that felt delicious. If you look over here, you'll see I have some stuff that has been added into the data portion. This stuff is all available to you, and I'm gonna let you guys use it, but I'm gonna upload a license with it. Basically, all I'm gonna say is you can use it for any personal projects you have. Just don't use it for commercial purposes without kind of talking to me first. So that's the general license. I'm going to look up exactly which one that is because I don't know the licenses off the top of my head. But I think that's pretty fair. So they're all going to be in the repo, so you can download them and you can follow along should you so choose. But let's go to my desktop here with these creepy looking people that come with Windows. I don't know why it does. And you're going to see that I have this output folder here, which already has stuff in it. Let's actually go ahead and just toss that in the recycle bin. It's not really needed. And then we've got this input folder, and this import folder has two 9 PNGs, and you can see that we've got this 16 by 16 image, but then there are these lines. There's 2 black pixels here and 2 black pixels up here. They look like more than a pixel because it's zoomed in so far, but I promise you each of those is a pixel each. And 9 PNG, or yeah, 9 pings, 9 patches is the actually what they're called. There we go. Word came to me. Are kind of cool because it's a way for you to create a scalable image. So if this image needs to be scaled this way vertically, it'll only scale these 2 rows of pixels. So this gray bar will get scaled down and this black bar will get scaled up as it kind of expands up and down. And we'll see that as we kind of play around with it. And with here, these 2 columns of pixels in here will get scaled if it needs to be scaled horizontally. And that's if the button is unpressed, and if the button's being pressed, it switches over to this, which is basically the same thing, but it kind of gives a cool depth effect. All you do is you rotate the image 180 degrees. If you put the dark on the bottom and the light on top, rotate it 180 degrees for when it's pressed, it gives you a kind of cool depth effect, for those of you that didn't know. And then we're gonna open up this GDX texture packer, which I will provide a link to. This is actually done by the same guy who does the Tween engine, if you couldn't tell by that Tween engine looking intro thingy there. And libgdx provides a command line utility for this, but we're actually just going to use the GUI for it. We're going to call it button. Let's see, for the most part, all of these should be okay. We're going to make sure that force power of 2 is checked because we're only using GL 1.x. and use aliases. Don't have debug checked. If you have debug checked, it's going to put a little pink outline around everything so you can see exactly where the images are that you're kind of picking from, which is nice for debugging, but in a final product. And with this, we don't really need it for this yet. And I'm actually going to do my own kind of image debugging when we get into the game, so that won't be a big deal. We can choose to strip white space. We don't really need it for this. Allowing rotations just allows it to pack things in here tighter. It's kind of cool how it'll all work, but we're going to pick our input directory, which I named it nice as input, and pick our output directory, which is, you guessed it, and we're just going to click, either one's going to do the same thing, but boom, done. And it creates one image that actually looks like that, and it's in the output folder. So we can see it here. This is literally what the image is, and the .pack file, actually let's just go ahead, and since we've got Eclipse open, it's going to tell us we already have it, but that's alright, we'll just override it. This atlas file can be deleted. But if we look at the .pack file, you can see that there's a heading for button normal and button pressed, which was the name of our files. And it tells us the size, 16 by 16, where it can be split, since it was a 9 patch, and the offsets it has, and the index of it. That's not too important for anything we're going to be doing, because the engine's going to do all that for us. In creating this is called a texture atlas. Whoops. When you put multiple images like this into one file, and it's a whole lot more efficient for your game. It has to do with the way OpenGL binds textures. It actually saves quite a bit from what I understand. So not only is it easier to do, I mean, it seems harder to do because it's adding an extra step in terms of packing it, but it's actually fairly easy once you see how this is actually loaded and used. So in the render, I accidentally took out the where we cleared it with a color. So let's go ahead and actually re-add that, but this time we're going to just keep it black, which is 0001, because 1's for the alpha. We don't want it to be completely transparent. And gdx.gl.gl clear gl 10 point gl color buffer bit. Alright, now we've got that out of the way. Now libgdx provides a pretty nice kind of it's called Scene 2D, and it's a nice way to set up user interfaces, or UIs. And we're going to actually use this for the main menu. Some people even actually use it for their games, but I'm not sure if we're going to yet. That's going to be something I probably decide on tomorrow. If I do the tutorial tomorrow, next one, tomorrow's Thursday, I won't be in class too late. So yeah, I could get around to touching up on the game. So it'll probably be a decision I need to make semi-quickly. And just a heads up, if we really wanted to, we could take the splash screen and pack it, and pack all of these, all three of the images, into one image together, but I just didn't do it because I'm building the games in different pieces, so I just decided not to. So in the show method, we actually aren't going to be doing much this time, so we can delete the to-do. We're actually going to be doing most of our work, crazy enough, in the Resize method, because the way libgdx works, I don't know if I've explained this yet or not, but the show method gets called first. I'm sure you guys know that. But then the Resize method gets called. And every time it gets resized, it also gets called again, and the render method gets called over and over again. So what we're actually going to do is, since the Resize method gets called at startup, we're going to use that for what's called Scene 2D, which is, in case you can't see, we have a whole bunch of imports for, because that's what I was using. And we'll use that to create our user interface. But first we're going to create a few variables. We're going to create a stage called stage, a bitmap font called font, and I will go over in a second how to create that. A texture atlas. What else do we need? We need a skin. And you can see that we're really creative in terms of our variable names, but it makes it a whole lot easier when you're doing your work. And a sprite batch. I will call that batch. So I suppose in show we can do a little bit of work here. We can actually say that batch equals a, my goodness, I cannot type right now, sprite batch. And we could play with the, well, let's go ahead and set up the skin. Skin equals new skin. And we can set up the atlas. X equals new texture atlas. And we're actually going to give it a string to the location, which is button.pack, because instead of actually just calling for a file handle, it actually just calls, it can take a string. There's multiple constructions. One of them just takes a string for the location, and you can see the button.pack is inside of data here. So that's where we're going to be letting it load that from. We're going to have to load the font. The stage will be done in Resize. And so we've got the badge, the atlas, the font, and the game we don't need now. So there's a program called BM Font. And if I go to my program files, Angel Code, BM Font, and load this up, you're going to see I have all these characters here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to, because libgdx doesn't natively take true type font files and stuff like that, so we use bitmap fonts. And so under font settings, I'm actually going to be using a font called Visitor, which is a pretty cool looking font. It's kind of old school, and I'm going to remove, actually, whoops. We're going to add all these characters, but then we're going to remove these because I find them a little bit unnecessary, I suppose, because we aren't internationalizing. We aren't worried about kind of working our game with other languages yet. So we can kind of not worry about those right now. If you are from a country where you use the accented characters, you know, you can keep those in and stuff like that. But for me and my purposes, it's not necessary. If you keep them, the steps won't be any different. Under export options, we're actually going to use 32-bit depth, the glyph for the alpha, and the R. If you want a black font, you're going to set everything to 0. If you want a white, you're going to send everything to 1. I already have the black one, so I'm going to create this one white. And I'm going to save this configuration as white font, because the other one's black. So that way, so we've got white font. Uh-oh, I hope I didn't rewrite that. I think it did though. Which isn't a big deal. I'm just going to rename this. Rename that to font 1. And select the program from a list of installed programs. This is just a little hiccup because of the way we're doing it, but let's see. File version. Let's see here what we can find. Actually, it's going to be easier to play with inside of Eclipse. So let's just go ahead and open up Eclipse, throw it inside of there, copy the files, and look at Oh, crap. Yeah, actually, that was completely silly of me. We can actually do this. Crap, I completely did that wrong. Oh my goodness gracious. My bad. I actually saved the configuration settings, so I can load a configuration and that'll set everything back the way it was. But now we can save the Bitmap font as white font. Whoa, didn't mean to put it that big. We'll close out of that, and close out of that. And now we've got these two white font files. .font file. Okay. So we can go ahead and actually add Bitmap Font white. And let's just call this one black, just so we know which is which, to make it easy. So we're going to say white equals new Bitmap Font, and we can hit Control Space to look at the what it takes. So we're going to say that this is a file handle, so it's gdx.files.internal. Whoops. And then it's in data /white font.fnt. And then for the flip, this is false because it's facing the way we want, if that makes sense. And then black is almost the same. gdx.files.internal, and then it's going to be data /font.fnt, comma false. Alright, so we have our fonts and everything else set up, but let's go ahead and worry about disposing those now in the dispose method before we forget, because forgetting is never a good thing. So we might as well deal with it now while it's fresh in our minds. It's kind of a good practice to get into, to think about disposing those right away, and we can go ahead and I think dispose of our stage too. I can't remember if we're going to need a button, and it's a text button, and it's called button. So let's see if our button is going to need disposed of. All you have to do is check if it has a dispose method, and if it doesn't, then it doesn't need disposed. If it does, then it does need it. Fairly simple, fairly straightforward. So we've got all this set up. So let's just say if skin equals null, or not skin, whoops, if stage equals null, stage equals new stage, and it takes the width and the height, and if you want it to stretch over the entire thing, it doesn't, if you want it to scale to stretch the entire screen, since it's the same size, it doesn't really need to, but I just put it there anyway. You could probably set it to false. And we're going to say stage.clear for when it gets resized. We're going to say gdx.input.set input processor to the stage so that it is collecting the touchdown events. And then this is what we need next. We need a text button style, and we'll just call that style. So new text button style. And the skin actually should go below the atlas, and then we'll actually say skin dot add regions and pass the atlas onto it. And this will make it really easy to access those two things, and you'll see why here in a second. We'll say style.up equals skin.getDrawable, and we called it button normal. That should sound familiar to you, because if we look at this .pack file, we have button normal right there. So That's saying when the button is in the up position, aka unpressed, it's going to display that picture for it. Now if it's down or being pressed, we're going to set it to skin.get drawable and set it to button pressed. And you can play around and kind of look at the other things you can play with, like checked or down font color if you want to change the font color, stuff like that. But the other thing we need is a font, and that needs to actually be black, our black font, because it's a white button, because the image itself is white. Now that that's out of the way, we can say that button equals a if button equals null. Well, and actually, we don't really need to. I'll leave it like this. Button equals a new text button. We're going to say our button should say press me, just to start off with, and it takes the style. And we're going to say the button dot width, button dot set width. We're going to say it needs to be 400, and the button dot set height should be 100. And we're going to have this button go to the center of the screen. So the button dot set x should be gdx dot graphics dot get width divided by 2 minus button dot get width divided by 2. And then button dot set y is going to be the same, just with height. Height divided by 2 minus button dot get height divided by 2. Whoops. Getting ahead of myself. And then we're actually going to have to say stage dot add actor, and that actor is the button. Alright, so we've got it so that we've got the button on the stage. Now we need to draw it. So we actually need to say stage dot act, which I believe just calls act dot float with the get delta time. Alright. Or we could actually even just pass delta through it right there. Yep. Then we need to say batch dot begin, batch dot end, so we don't forget, and then stage dot draw. So let us actually, does it need is there something we can pass the batch to? No. I think actually we can pass it. I think there's a different constructor where it passes the sprite batch. Yeah, so we can actually say, because I'm not sure if it actually needs it, but I'm sure it doesn't hurt if we pass it along to it. Let's go ahead and play this out and see how it works. So we've got our fancy fade in, our fancy fade out, and crash. You have to call sprite dot end first. Okay, so we actually should not send it the batch. After I said it shouldn't hurt anything, it does. Of course. Alright, now there we've got our fancy press me button, and we can click it, and it does absolutely nothing, but that is alright because it looks so cool, doesn't it? Look at it, you click it, and look, it gives you a cool little depth effect. I'm digging it. So let's go ahead and actually set it so that when you click it, it does something. To do that, just down here, we're going to say button dot add action, is it? Add listener is what it is, and it's a new input listener, and it's a, let me look, I actually brought up the whatchamacallit, the wiki information on it, just so I wouldn't forget how to do it, and I totally forgot. We're actually going to be doing the touch up event, because just like that, so that way we know when it's been touched, of course, or when it's been lifted up. So it'll actually print out up in the console when we lift our mouse, or at least it should. Let's see if it actually works that way for us. And nothing. Alright, do I need to do override? Will that do something for me? Let's actually debug this. The debugging causes your game to run a little bit slower, but you can hot swap code in and out, so you can change things while your game's running. And you don't have to actually quit it. gdx.app.log angrymasons.log. So there we go, it's been hot swapped, and now is our game resizable? Yes, it is. Huh. Let's actually, to show you how this works, since this is in the Resize method, we can like change this to say play, and we'll save, and it'll say press me, but look, it's changed it to play when we resized it. So that's something that's kind of cool, I think. What am I doing wrong? Because this was just working for me a second ago. Let me just go ahead and put this whole thing into here and see how. Terminate that. Go ahead and save it and then run it. So it'll tell you if what you hot swap is not okay to hot swap. Apparently I did something. Down, up, down, up, down, up. Okay, now it's working. Why? So do I need to actually have the touchdown? Can I, if I were to comment this out, would it get mad at me? Let's find out. Not necessarily get mad at me, but would it still work and at least do the touch up? No. Alright, so we actually have to handle the touch up, the touch down, apparently. Otherwise, it does not like us very much. So we can just return true and not do anything else. And then that should be enough for it to be happy where it should print out up. Let's see here. I'm really digging our, fade in and fade out effect. It makes it look so professional, does it? Yep. So there we get our up without having to really do anything else. With our fancy button. Man, the button is looking nice. Mighty fine. So let's actually, now let's draw, put our white font above our button. And we're going to say white.draw. I wonder if there's any way that we can actually, like, draw multi-line, draw wrap. No. Alright, so we're going to send it the batch. The string we're going to set to Angry Masons. And if you want to change the font size, unfortunately, I think you need to do it in the Bitmap Font Creator. I could be wrong on that though. And for the X, we're going to do gdx.graphics.get width divided by 2, and we're going to subtract that from, let's just say, give an arbitrary value of 15. And for this, we're going to say gdx.graphics, because we don't really know the actual width of this, how many pixels that'll take up. I mean, we could calculate it knowing the font size and stuff like that, but don't really feel like doing that quite right now. Divided by 2, and we're going to say plus 100. More arbitrary values that we can just kind of play with later. Alright, so fade in, fade out. Ooh. Apparently I did not set that up very well. I did not set up the font correctly, and it is mad at me now for it. That's alright. It's alright. We'll deal with it as we deal with it. I'll remake it and re-upload it when it's working again. But that's not the important part. We're going to actually get to the awesome part now. Set screen, new, game, and tell me you guys are not excited about creating this new class, game, that implements screen. So we've got through all of that boring stuff just so that we can create the game. I wouldn't call it boring stuff. We learned quite a bit. It was pretty fun. We got to play around with the engine quite a bit, and that's always nice. But, you know, it's not as fun as actually getting to code away at, you know, an awesome game and stuff like that, and actually being able to play something. Because if you took what we have right now to your friends and you were like, hey guys, look at this, it's got this cool fade in and this cool fade out, and then a menu pops up and it's got a button and these squares, they're supposed to be letters, but we don't even worry about that right now because that's just going to happen when it happens, you know. Yeah, but that's, you know, it's underwhelming, but it's nice, and we should be proud of what we've done so far. We went from nothing to a splash screen and a menu and a font that, well, is less than, you know, pleasurable, but that's alright. So, oh, I bet that's what I did wrong. Yes, I bet it is. You know what, let's fix the font real quick so that you guys know where I went wrong, so if you copy it, you don't make the same mistake. Let's go ahead and load that old configuration I had. We can look at it and pick our export options. And I think if we pick white text with alpha, so that should work. Maybe it needs, that is really weird. Huh. White text on alpha. Okay, let's visualize this. So let's just try to save this again as white font. Yes, replace it. And once again, we'll just put it right back in here, I suppose. Run this again, and let's see if it works now. This is kind of going to be a little bit of trial and error, as you can guess. You know, I really don't want to cheat it, because I could always, you know, just let's try the outline. Options, save as white.font. Yes. Alright, is this gonna work? This is a little bit frustrating. This is the nitty-gritty part of game design that, depending on how good you are, you might not have to deal with, but apparently I'm having to deal with it for some reason. You know what? I'm going to cheat on this a little bit, and I'm going to say white text on black with no alpha. And we're going to save it as that, because it'll work, but it's kind of cheating a little bit, and I might show you guys an example of why later, but for now, whoops, wrong buttons. I'm so used to keyboard shortcuts, and I keep forgetting I can't use it for this the way I have it set up to kind of start up a game. Alright, I wonder if, what in the world is going on? White font, white font. That is really weird. I wonder if... White dot... is there any... Alright, well, when it gets fixed, I will show you guys the fix in the next video, but for now, you know, I will see you later. We're going to be playing with the game tomorrow, and that's going to be completely awesome. So I will see you guys later. Welcome to, you know, making the menu and everything. Be proud, and see ya.